Points of information.
A problem that would influence the work of the politician. And we also showed you that actually those people will not have somehow lower moral values than the whole society and will not be worse for the society, because those people are supposed to represent the society and supposed to represent the morals in the society. And if the whole society is not moral, and if the whole society cheats on, half of the society cheats on their wife, then we guess that half of the parliament will also cheat on their wives. And we're okay with that, because they are actually representing the people that are cheating their wife. And we believe that it's a great thing if we have people in parliament who are doing the same things as normal people. Because actually, you may tell me that they will understand the problems of normal people if they will be different. But I would rather say people that are really the same, wait a moment, sir, as I am, and they then are representing me. Don't you agree, sir?
If stealing is a problem in a particular society, would you like members of parliament to go out and steal so they look the same as people in society?
Thank you, sir, but we don't want to talk about crimes. We certainly do not support doing the crimes, but we see making crimes different than cheating your wife, because cheating your wife is not a crime and should never be, because you're free to do so if you want to. On the other hand, you're not free to somehow harm the people around you and to steal from them something that is physical and stuff like that. And we are not talking about that in this debate. Now to my actual point about how this should reflect the society and how those people should be the same. Because this is the only case when we can really get what is going on in the society and what is really good for the society. And therefore we again see that even as an example on the international conflict and stuff like that, and how this will harm relationships. And we did not get that point, but we see that as a thing that will also, for example, Czech president steal a pen from some Argentine president, and it was bad. But on the other hand, no one thinks about Czech Republic that we're all stealing, and the side of opposition is not afraid that I will steal a great almanac from 2012. Even though I could do that because my president is doing that too. And I think that people are able to consider whether this is really relevant for the whole country or whether this is just a thing of one person. And we see that this will not be a problem for the whole society, and therefore that will not harm them. And we also see that, and we also heard that people will not trust their politicians when they will not be perfect, and people actually want to vote politicians that are perfect. And, no, thank you, sir. We believe that this is not the case, that you can really trust a person that you know everything about. And we also want to show you that actually, if you will make them to resign just because of that, they will try not to tell you and they will try to be someone different. But they are still one of the society. They still tend to make mistakes. And therefore they would pretend to be someone else just because you do not like them to be doing what they actually would like to. And this may harm the trust into the politicians. And we also showed you that this would be better in the case of more side proposition. Yes, sir.
Would side proposition allow individuals with criminal sentences to run for politics?
Well, if they were punished and if they were in prison, then we believe that they were rehabilitated by the society, and the society again trusts them. And we see that as an okay thing, and we would allow them to be politicians. And this also may apply in this debate because we believe that people, again, can make themselves better and people can improve themselves. And actually by having, for example, a scandal, they will try to show the society that they're still good, as we also showed you, and as the side of opposition never really reacted to. And we see that, again, as a thing that would be good for the society. But I was also talking about the fact that people will be more engaged in the politics if they would see that politicians are also people, because it's kind of boring to read about the people that are perfect, they're not doing any mistakes, and that are completely different. And we see that as a situation that is, for example, in Czech Republic, common between many people, because they're reading tabloids and they're reading about celebrities and they do not care much about politicians. But we are saying that if the politicians would be more like normal people, if the politicians would be like them, they would be interested into politicians and into whole politics more, and therefore we can even improve our whole system of the government, and we could even improve the whole thing and the whole democratic society nowadays. Now what we showed you was that those people would be interested, and the only thing we heard is that all people want to see moral things and all people want to be 100% perfect and want to have a person that is representing them perfect. But we do not see this as a case, because as a person that do not cheat my husband because I don't have it. But if I did, I would like to have in a parliament someone who is probably doing the same thing, that is same as me. And we did not hear any reaction from the side of opposition to that throughout the whole debate. So what I showed you in my speech was firstly that the tabloids may destroy the career of one politician that may be great for society and replaced by someone else, even if that person is not as good as the one before. And secondly, I showed you all the impacts that it will have good on the work, and secondly, why it will not have bad impacts on the work, and why the politicians can be even better for the society when they are as all the people. And therefore, I want you to stand for the people that are actually as we all are, and they are not perfect.
Down the line, we've tried to tell you one very simple thing, and that's when we place great power within our politicians, we also expect them to have great responsibility. So in that line, I'm going to ask two questions. Firstly, what is the role of public office? Secondly, what are the practical political consequences of such scandals as we've been talking about today? So the first idea on what the role of public office is, they first try to tell us the main point is that politicians aren't perfect. And we agree, they aren't. They're human beings. But the point is, we hold them to higher standards because they're in public office. They're in the public view, they're representative of the entire country, and because they carry out policies, they represent the entire electorate that voted for you. So when we see that politicians commit scandals, these are scandals that are beyond the simple mistakes and transgressions that we talk about. These are scandals that, firstly, robs the public confidence away from them, which means people no longer trust these politicians to work in their field. People no longer trust these politicians in their decision-making when they're passing policies. Secondly, it reveals the questionable moral character of these politicians. So their true beliefs and the true ideas of these politicians are now exposed to the public. So previously they might have campaigned upon free rights and equal rights for races. But because of racist remarks that they uttered in the public, in the private sphere, this now undermines those kind of movements in their policies. And we see that as an undercurrent of political beliefs, and their ability to pass free policies are undermined as such. Lastly, we see that they're reflective of the entire country simply because they're put in a public position or they are representative in government. So when they're put in the public policy and representative of government, firstly, they're held accountable to the people themselves, and secondly, they deal directly with international diplomats. Then the perceptions of the country becomes uncolored because of the transgressions of these politicians. Secondly, they told us that politicians should be punished like everyone else. But this is not true. Firstly, we brought here professions that operate similarly on trust, such as lawyers and teachers. Both these professions suffer significantly because of a loss of trust. When we don't trust these people to carry out their duties properly, we start penalizing them more than other professions do. And this is because they need this to operate. Secondly, we bring to you that public office isn't like any other job. They pass laws that affect people on a mass scale. In no other job are you given that amount of power or that amount of responsibility. And because you have such mass effect on such a large number of people, we agree that we have to hold you to higher standards. We've examined your moral character a lot better. We need to hold you to not unreasonable, hold you to higher standards. No, thank you, ma'am. Lastly, they told us that society has a right to elect who they want. And this is basically the idea that if people want to elect other people who are adulterous and sleep around, they should have the right to. First of all, we think that this is not true. People don't want politicians with questionable moral character. People want politicians who are better than them, who are responsible. I'll take it a minute, sir. Who are responsible and set good moral standards for people. People know what's right and what's wrong. Even the majority of the country are committing adultery. Our politicians ought to be better. Yes, sir.
What exactly does it mean to represent people?
It means we represent the ideals of people. What people think is an ideal good. What people think should be done and should not be done. Even though a majority of society might be adulterous, it doesn't mean that the majority of society believes that adultery is good and believes that adultery is right. No, thank you, ma'am. We think that secondly, because politicians are elected on a facade of political campaign, a facade of rhetoric that gets them elected into power, this doesn't show the true value or true character which they truly believe in. So when scandals like these expose their true nature, people should have the ability to revise their opinions on these politicians. And secondly, we think that resignations come in very handy at this point, because when people know about the true nature of these politicians, they don't want to wait until the next election term to elect them out. They want their politicians out immediately, so they can't cause any other further harm to the political system, so they can't cause any further harm to the country's reputation, the safeguarding of the entire people. Finally, they told us that politicians work too hard, and because they work too hard, they start making small transgressions in the real world. Firstly, that's not true. Politicians are expected to deal with stress appropriately, just like anyone else, right? When we allow people to go into jobs, every single job has stress, but we don't allow people to commit crimes or commit other scandalous acts just because they're facing such stress from their work. And secondly, if we see that if they can commit such transgressions within their public lives, then what is to stop them from committing such transgressions in the public life as well, right? If they have stress beyond the capability of reasonable and rational thought, then similarly, if they can make their mistakes within their private life and make such transgressions, then they can also make the mistakes in the public life and pass bad policies and not do their job well. So it's not true that the public and private sphere are completely unrelated. In fact, we've shown you time and time again down the line that the extremely confused entire idea of public office operates upon that. Let me move on now to my second clash on the practical consequences of such things. So first of all, they told us that there are not enough capable people to take power, something that their third speaker dropped. First of all, we told you that's not true. The pool of talented people ready to take power is clearly defined. We have opposition parties, we have clear lines of succession when ministers are resigning from their job. So it's not true that we don't have enough talented people. Secondly, we think that when scandals occur, this entrenches the divide between national moral values. Let me give you two examples. When a politician makes racist remarks, this discriminates against certain racial groups, which means these racial groups now feel unrepresented by the political system, they feel unrepresented by the political party. No thank you, madam. Secondly, in terms of sex scandals, this discriminates against the people who are sexually conservatives. So now the conservatives and the cause, we go up to the parliament and say, I'm not being represented, I feel undermined, and I have tensions against that. So all these entrenches the national divide between moral values simply because of the way that politicians are placed within the national system, and simply because of how fundamentally crucial they are as to how the country perceives themselves as operating. Secondly, we bring to you the idea that because they don't allow for the resignation of people in such cases, this potentially paves the way for a functional dictatorship. So what happens when you allow for politicians to get away with anything just so long as they are perceived as being able to do their job? Where do we draw the line in the kinds of transgressions they allow in the public life? We allow them to get away with murder because it doesn't affect their ability to pass policies. We allow them to get away with rape because it doesn't affect, again, the ability to pass policies. No. We see that then very clearly we have to draw a moral line, which is what principally all laws are based on, morality. A moral line as to where you draw the line as to how far or how much freedom. I'll take it from you, madam. How much freedom do you allow these people to have? Lastly, they brought to us that society wants to know that politicians are fallible too. No, this trust and allowing with the policies comes in knowing that your leaders are better than you. So we don't allow politicians with past criminal records, similarly as we don't employ people with past criminal records in the same way. We don't judge people once they've done a past transaction in the same way. Secondly, personal opinions that reflect badly on the whole society, affect how people in other countries perceive them too. So when Condoleezza Rice goes out there and makes this disparaging remark against the Argentina ambassador, this reflects badly on the whole of America, this reflects badly on the whole of the racial profiling that Americans do towards Latin Americans. And lastly, very last point, he told us that tabloids will start hounding politicians. This is not true because we see that politicians that maintain good conduct and nothing to fear. An example of this is how Obama and Lisa Long have been able to take the public perception of them properly. And second of all, we think that tabloids will always hound these politicians anyway, regardless of what they do. So that's really been a great herring in today's debate. So I've shown you today's debate. Firstly, I've shown you that politicians have a responsibility to have good, responsible moral conduct. Secondly, we say that it's practically possible that they are resigning without any political consequences. Thank you.
going to take you through a walk down the world of side proposition. In a world where politicians were vindicated from normal societal standards of morality because they were stressed. In a world that ignored that character has a holistic bearing upon an individual's ability and actions, such that what he does in his private life can and will affect his character in his public life as well. They asserted that politicians were like everyone else, but this ignored the very nature of a politician's job, the privilege that it accrued, the fact that it meant being a model citizen, living up to the aspirations of the people who elected you, and creating policies and laws that were necessarily moral judgments and moral values. Politicians could now market themselves as being good people, apart from just the ideologies they had, and still betray public trust in this image, even though society was outraged about it. Even though this undermined faith in the political system, which caused it to be fractured, to lack political impetus, like it did in Taiwan, like it does in Japan, and like it does in many other examples that we told you. They had no response. They said politicians should do wrong, because they'll therefore be more like the common man, and they'll be able to engage with society. This alienated the entire population from the political system, rather than endearing it. Because even if society was adulterous, they longed and they dreamt for more. And that's why they voted, that's why they used the ballot box. In their world, the political system was no longer an avenue or a platform for the achievement of the realization of higher hopes. Their world was just one of immorality and wrongdoing. That's why in Third Speaker, they were no longer engaging with our points about the sanctity of the political system, no longer engaging with our points about perceptions of policymakers, but instead they were about justifying adultery. In their world, international relations was just a show of diplomatic anarchy, because politicians represented their nations and undercut interstate relations and increased tensions because of their bad behavior, even in the private sphere. They ignored this. They swept it under the carpet, just like a bad affair of a politician. In our world, it was far better, because politicians were accountable. Politicians had to live up to a higher moral standard simply because they were expected to function at a higher level than other citizens. Politicians were expected to do more than just do their job, because all of society didn't just expect them to do their job, they expected them to represent societal aspirations and to be model citizens for their children, for their fellow countrymen, for people who would be able to say that they upheld the moral standards of their country. In our world, the media was a check against what politicians did, not tabloids, because in Washington, tabloids don't hold sway. But the media was a check against what politicians did, not only in themselves, but also in relation with other checks and balances, like witness testimonies, like people coming forward to testify about what politicians did in their private lives. In our world, politicians weren't just functioning as individuals who could go home and do whatever they pleased, because we recognized that it wasn't just a balance between public life and private life, but it was an ability to amalgamate both. Because fundamentally what a politician does is that he's not like a lawyer, he's not like a businessman, he doesn't sell a good. But what he does is he represents an ideal, and he sells that ideal as himself. Because we understood that that's what a politician stands for, that's what people believe, and that's what the system of politics should be about. We proved to you that at the end of the day, scandals which affected a politician's private life had to be allowed to allow him to resign. Because at the end of the day, politics wasn't just a business. It was far more than that.
All right, thank you very much. And I'd like to call on the last speaker of the day.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was a pretty one-sided debate, and we clearly stand for the idea that the proposition today should be the winner of this debate. Firstly, we will show you what exactly does it mean to represent people. What does it mean? What is the role of the politicians? And secondly, mainly, I will show you what does it mean, the system. How does it work, the system, when politicians are considered as one of us, when they're considered to be part of the society, and not just some person who's walking in this kind and basically eating in the snob restaurants and so on. So firstly, who is the politician? Basically, politicians were set up not to just be as to stand for some idea. The politicians stand up and they become the politicians because they wanted to rule the state, because they wanted to lead the state, and they wanted, and that is the only, no, not the only, but the first aim and the main aim and the core aim to actually provide the state a better future. Therefore, we believe that even though a politician could have made some mistake in his private life, it is totally not linked into what he's capable in his work business, what he's capable of doing for his country. And for example, if he is capable of pushing his country into a better future, much better future than anyone else in the country can, then we should provide him this chance because he wants it for us. Moreover, we also believe that representing people doesn't mean for the good ideas. We believe that representing people is showing what the people are really about, what they are about, how they think, how is their thoughts about, and what do they really want. Therefore, we believe that if there are politicians in the government who have maybe, according to the side of the opposition, bad thoughts or bad ideas about abortion or anything like that, we believe that it's totally alright because it's totally common in the society. And as we are saying, every nation is different. Therefore, in every nation, in every government, there will be different opinions. Moreover, now to the point that how the process of gaining a big reputation in the society will work. Firstly, I want to say that if people will see that the politician isn't just a person who is going to work by a meritorious, but it's really a person who is doing the same job and the same thing, the same stuff, the same habits as the person of the society does. Therefore, he will see that he will feel more for the people. He will be more interested in what he is talking about, what is his ideas about. Therefore, they will be even more interested in the politics overall. Moreover, that's a big aim of this democratic system, to make people aware and make them informed what is going on. And therefore the people will have a powerful, has a right and the power to actually change everything in the elections. However, if they won't be engaged in the election and then not in the politics, therefore we see that they will just not simply go to elections, and therefore we will have a government which is totally messed up. So just to summarize, what I've basically told in the very passage. I've shown what does it mean to represent and who is the politician. Politician is just one of us. Also, I've shown you that how the process of gaining the reputation for society works, and therefore I believe that on the end of the day, I will still stand proudly on the side of the proposition. Thank you.